"You don't understand," she whispered. "This isn't like Whispers in Lagos or even in New York. Hollywood devours people for sport. If they catch us, if they even think they've caught us, they'll destroy us both." Kofi stepped closer, his voice steady but his eyes dark with intensity. "And if we stop now, Amelia? Do you want to go back to pretending? To living like a ghost in your own house?" The truth lodged in her throat. She didn't want to stop. She couldn't. But fate wasn't interested in what she wanted. 2 nights later, after a particularly long day, Amelia and Kofi slipped into the back garden for air. The moonlight pooled around them, the scent of rosemary heavy in the breeze. Kofi reached for her hand, his thumb brushing her knuckles in a gesture so tender it unraveled her. She leaned into him, her head against his chest. Neither of them saw the figure on the other side of the hedge. The paparazzo who had been lurking for days, camera raised, shutter snapping silently. The photo was grainy, taken at night, their faces shadowed. But Amelia's silhouette was unmistakable. By morning, the headline blazed across the internet. "Amelia Hart's secret romance? Mystery man spotted in late-night embrace." When Amelia's phone buzzed with dozens of missed calls, she knew their private fire had just become public fuel. And somewhere deep inside, despite the dread curling in her stomach, she felt a dangerous, undeniable thrill. Because for the first time, their love was no longer a secret. The article spread like wildfire. Within hours, Amelia's name trended on Twitter, Instagram, and gossip blogs across the globe. The photo wasn't clear enough to reveal Kofi's face, but it didn't matter. The mystery only fueled the frenzy. Who was the young man? Was he her lover? Was Amelia Hart, the epitome of Hollywood grace, sneaking around with someone barely out of his 20s? The narrative wrote itself. Amelia's publicist called at 6 a.m. sharp. "This is bad," Marjorie said, her voice brittle. "Every outlet is running with it. We've had 3 movie offers rescinded overnight. Brands are pausing campaigns. Amelia, you need to issue a statement now." Amelia pressed a hand to her temple, exhaustion and dread clashing in her chest. "And say what? That it's all lies?" "Yes," Marjorie snapped. "That's exactly what you say. We deny, deny, deny. That's the only way this doesn't ruin you." But as she ended the call, Amelia glanced across the room at Kofi, who had been silent, standing in the doorway. His expression was unreadable, but she could feel the weight of his thoughts. "They want you to erase me," he said softly. Her throat tightened. "They want me to protect my career. And I'm the casualty." Amelia closed her eyes. The truth stung because it was exactly what Marjorie wanted her to do. Pretend Kofi was no one, a rumor conjured from shadows. But the thought of denying him, of pretending their love was shameful, made something inside her ache with rage. By noon, paparazzi camped outside her gates. Cameras flashed through the wrought iron, and reporters shouted questions about her mystery boyfriend. When Amelia's car pulled out for a scheduled appearance, the mob swarmed, shouting insults wrapped as questions. "Amelia, how young is he? Are you paying your staff for extra services? Care to comment on being a cougar?" The words cut sharper than she expected. She managed to smile and wave, but her hands trembled so badly her driver noticed. "You don't have to do this, ma'am," he murmured. "Yes, I do," Amelia said through clenched teeth. That evening, the first mainstream news outlets joined the feeding frenzy. CNN and BBC ran polite coverage of the scandal, but the tabloids were merciless. Headlines screamed across glossy covers. From red carpet to kitchen counter, Amelia's shocking romance. Hollywood's darling falls for the help. Age gap, class gap, race gap, Amelia Hart's recipe for disaster. Kofi's identity leaked within days. An old photo from his restaurant days surfaced on Facebook, plastered everywhere before he even had the chance to delete it. Suddenly he wasn't just a mystery man. He was Kofi Adewale, 26-year-old Nigerian immigrant, private chef, and now unwilling headline. The fallout was immediate. Anonymous trolls filled his inbox with slurs, mocking his accent, his skin, his background. Journalists hounded his family back home in Lagos. A gossip blog even published the name of the culinary school he'd attended, digging into every inch of his past as if he were a criminal. Kofi tried to hide it from Amelia, but one night she caught him sitting at the kitchen table with his head in his hands, his phone buzzing with cruel messages. "This isn't your world," he whispered bitterly. "I don't belong here. They'll never let me belong." Amelia knelt beside him, gripping his hand with fierce determination. "Then we don't let them decide what we are. Not the press, not Hollywood, not anyone." Her voice was steady, but inside she was cracking. Because she knew the storm had only just begun. Offers drying up, sponsors backing out, paparazzi multiplying by the day. And deep down, Amelia wondered how long their love could survive when the entire world seemed determined to crush it. Amelia's world had always run on whispers. The polite smiles at premieres, the backroom deals, the quiet assurances that she was the brand, the safe face of Hollywood. But in the wake of the scandal, the whispers turned into silences. The phone stopped ringing. The scripts stopped arriving. Her agent, Leonard, who had stood by her side for 20 years, finally cracked. "I begged them," he said during a tense meeting at his office. "But the studios don't want the baggage. They think you're radioactive right now. Amelia, this thing with the chef, it's killing your career." She sat stiffly, every word slicing through her composure. "Say his name," she demanded. Leonard shifted uncomfortably. "Kofi." "Fine. But this isn't about him personally. It's about you. You're 52. Women your age don't get many chances in this business as it is, and you're blowing yours up over love?" She cut in sharply, her voice trembling with both fury and pain. He sighed, pinching the bridge of his nose. "Over optics. That's what this town runs on. Optics." 2 days later, Amelia attended a studio event she had committed to months ago. It was supposed to be her stage, a celebration of her philanthropic work. Instead, it turned into a silent judgment. When she walked into the grand ballroom, the air shifted. Conversations paused. Old friends who used to greet her with kisses on both cheeks now offered tight smiles from across the room. Others turned away entirely. She caught fragments of cruel murmurs. "Tragic, isn't it? Throwing it all away for some boy. She's desperate. That's all it is. Can you imagine the scandal if it were a male star with his maid? She'd be crucified." Amelia forced herself to glide through the crowd, head high, but inside she felt stripped bare. Every chandelier seemed to spotlight her shame. Meanwhile, Kofi's life was no kinder. The restaurants that had once courted him to guest chef canceled. Old colleagues distanced themselves. Even the suppliers who brought fresh produce to Amelia's home now whispered when they delivered crates, their eyes darting toward him with judgment. The cruelest blow came when his mother called from Nigeria. "Kofi," she said gently, "we see the news here too. Everyone is talking. People at church whisper. They say you are being used." "I'm not being used, Mama," he insisted, his chest tightening. "Then why does the whole world believe you are? Why do they mock you?" Her words, though soft, cut deeper than the tabloids. For the first time, Kofi felt the crushing doubt seep in. Was Amelia's love worth this humiliation? At home, tension began to creep between them. One night, Amelia came in from a disastrous meeting with Marjorie, who had practically begged her to issue a statement denying everything. Amelia poured herself a glass of wine, her hands shaking. "Kofi," she whispered, "sometimes I wonder if it would be easier if we just said it was all a mistake." He froze, knife hovering above the cutting board. His eyes burned as he looked at her. "A mistake? Is that what I am to you?" "No," she said quickly, tears threatening. "God, no. You're the only thing in my life that feels real. But I can't breathe anymore, Kofi. I feel like they're all watching me drown." He slammed the knife down, the sound sharp in the kitchen. "And you think throwing me overboard will save you?" The silence that followed was jagged, filled with all the things they couldn't say. But Hollywood wasn't done with her. That week, Variety ran a blistering op-ed titled, "The Fall of Amelia Hart, When Icons Forget Their Place." It wasn't just gossip anymore. It was the industry itself, deciding she was done. And Amelia realized, with bone-deep dread, that this was no longer just a scandal. This was exile. The house had grown quieter over the past weeks, but not the peaceful kind of quiet. This silence was sharp, full of swallowed words, side glances, and the weight of everything left unsaid. Amelia tried to distract herself with endless glasses of wine and late-night pacing. Kofi buried himself in cooking, chopping vegetables with too much force, banging pots with a rhythm that felt like anger disguised as routine. It was only a matter of time before the silence cracked. The spark came one Friday evening. Amelia had just returned from what should have been a charity gala but turned into another cold, humiliating evening. She walked in, heels dangling from her hand, makeup smudged, exhaustion dripping from her body. Kofi was at the stove, stirring a pot of stew. The smell should have comforted her, but tonight it only made her feel more out of place, more like she didn't belong in her own life anymore. "They barely looked at me," Amelia muttered, dropping her heels on the floor. 20 years of work, and I'm treated like a leper because I dared to love someone the world doesn't approve of." Kofi stiffened, his back still turned. You make it sound like I'm the disease. She blinked. That's not what I said. That's what it feels like, he snapped, finally turning to face her. His eyes were bloodshot, his voice taut with weeks of suppressed anger. Every time you come back from one of these events, you look at me like I'm the reason your life is in ruins. Amelia's throat tightened. You think I blame you? Don't you? His voice rose. Because I see it, Amelia. The way you hesitate before holding my hand in public. The way you go quiet when people mention my name. You're ashamed of me. Her eyes flared with hurt. Ashamed? I fought for you, Kofi. I've defended us when everyone told me to walk away. I've lost jobs, friends, a career, everything, because I refused to give you up. Then why does it feel like I'm the mistake you regret every single day? The words hung heavy, slicing through the air like glass. Amelia's hands trembled as she set her glass down too hard, the wine sloshing over the rim. Do you think this is easy for me? I've built my life, my reputation, piece by piece, and in 1 month it's gone. I wake up to headlines calling me pathetic. I can't step outside without being ridiculed. And yes, I chose this, I chose you, but sometimes I can't breathe under the weight of it. Kofi's chest heaved. Do you think it's easier for me? I didn't ask for this circus. I didn't ask to have my family harassed, my name dragged through filth, to be called every ugly word people can think of. All I wanted was to love you quietly, honestly. But with you nothing is quiet. Nothing is private. It's all a war zone. For a moment neither spoke. The only sound was the stew bubbling angrily on the stove. Finally Amelia whispered, broken. Maybe they were right. Maybe we don't belong together. The words shattered him. Kofi stepped back as if she had struck him. His jaw clenched and his voice came out raw. If that's what you believe, then say it clearly. Say you don't want me. Amelia's eyes filled with tears, but her lips refused to move. Her silence was answer enough. Kofi turned, grabbing his jacket from the chair. I won't be the man you sacrifice when it's convenient. If you're ashamed of me, then you don't deserve me. And before she could stop him, he was gone. The door slamming behind him with a finality that echoed through the hollow mansion. Amelia sank into a chair, staring at the door. The silence that followed was deeper than ever. For the first time since meeting Kofi, she was utterly, terrifyingly alone. The house felt cavernous without him. Amelia had always thought of her Beverly Hills mansion as a fortress, a place where she could shut out the world and live in peace. But now, without Kofi's steady footsteps in the kitchen or his laughter spilling down the hallway, the house sounded hollow, every creak of wood and hum of the refrigerator reminding her of what she had lost. She left the television on constantly, not to watch but to fill the emptiness. Wine glasses multiplied on the counter. She wandered from room to room in her silk robes, like a ghost haunting her own life. When her phone buzzed with industry calls, she ignored them. She couldn't bear to hear more rejection. But when it buzzed with Kofi's name, it never did. And that silence hurt more than anything. Kofi, meanwhile, found himself in a cramped apartment downtown, lent to him by a friend. It was nothing like Amelia's mansion. 1 bedroom, peeling paint, the smell of fried food wafting through thin walls. But at least it was his. He told himself he should feel free here, away from the paparazzi's cameras, away from the suffocating whispers of Amelia's world. Yet at night, as he lay on a sagging mattress staring at the ceiling fan, he found no relief. His chest ached with loneliness. His hands itched to cook for her again. He had spent years honing his craft, yet nothing had ever satisfied him the way Amelia's smile did when she tasted his food. Now even the food seemed dull. The press of course had a field day. Hart and her chef split amid scandal, screamed one tabloid cover. Amelia Hart's toy boy dumps her, blared another. Neither was true, but neither of them corrected it. To the world, their silence was confirmation. One night, Amelia scrolled through her phone and found herself staring at a photo she had secretly taken of Kofi months ago. He had been in the garden, shirt sleeves rolled up, cutting herbs with care. The sunlight had caught his skin, his expression so serene, so hers. Tears blurred her vision. She pressed the phone to her chest, whispering into the dark, "I'm sorry. I'm so sorry." Across the city, Kofi sat on his balcony with a beer in hand, staring at the skyline. His friend, Malik, leaned against the railing beside him. "You still love her," Malik said simply. Kofi didn't answer at first. Then, with a heavy sigh, "I don't know how not to." Malik studied him. "Then why are you here and not with her?" Kofi clenched his jaw. "Because love shouldn't feel like drowning." Malik gave a slow nod. "Maybe. But sometimes the only thing worse than drowning is coming up for air alone." The word struck him deep. For weeks, they circled each other like shadows, apart but never free. Amelia rehearsed apologies in the mirror but never called. Kofi replayed their last fight in his head 1,000 times, wishing he had stayed, wishing he had fought harder. Neither knew that their story was far from over. Fate was already weaving their paths back together, in a way neither could have predicted. The longer they stayed apart, the more the world tried to claim them. For Amelia, the invitations came cloaked in sympathy. Producers, old colleagues, even so-called friends who had once distanced themselves suddenly reached out again. They invited her to dinner parties and charity events, where they spoke in hushed tones about resilience and moving on. At one such gathering, she found herself seated beside Victor Lang, a silver-haired film director with piercing blue eyes and a reputation for seducing his leading ladies. He leaned close, his cologne thick, his voice dripping with false warmth. "You don't need to hide away, Amelia," he murmured. "You're too luminous to waste your time on distractions." The implication stung. He didn't even bother saying Kofi's name. Victor brushed her hand lightly, lingering just enough to test her reaction. For a brief, shameful second, Amelia let him. She was starved for touch, for validation, for someone to look at her like she was still desirable. But then her chest clenched. The only hands she wanted on her skin were rougher, younger, darker. Hands that had once held her like she was the only person who existed. She pulled back, forcing a brittle smile. "I'm not looking for distractions, Victor." His smirk told her he didn't believe her. Across town, Kofi was fighting his own battle. At the small restaurant where he had started working, the owner's daughter, Naomi, took a keen interest in him. She was his age, mid-20s, with radiant skin and a laugh that seemed to brighten the entire kitchen. She lingered near his station, asking questions about recipes, teasing him when he chopped too aggressively, brushing against him with casual intimacy. "You're wasted here," she told him one afternoon, her eyes dancing. "You should have your own place. And someone to stand beside you while you build it." Kofi chuckled awkwardly, wiping his hands. "Maybe one day." Naomi tilted her head, studying him. "Whoever she is, she's lucky. But if she's foolish enough to let you go, someone else will see your worth." Her meaning was clear. For a moment, Kofi let himself imagine it. A simple life, no paparazzi, no scandals, just cooking in peace with someone who admired him openly. But the thought turned bitter almost instantly. Because no matter how he tried, every dream still had Amelia's face in it. The tabloids only fueled the fire. Amelia Hart spotted dining with director Victor Lang, new romance? Chef Kofi Mensah cozy with mystery woman at downtown bistro. Neither story was entirely true, but the photographs told their own dangerous stories. Amelia staring too long into Victor's eyes. Naomi laughing as she leaned into Kofi's shoulder. To the public it was proof. Amelia and her chef were finished. To Amelia and Kofi it was torture. One night, Amelia sat in her empty mansion, staring at the glossy magazine cover with Victor's arm draped around her. Rage and grief churned inside her. "This isn't me," she whispered. At the same time, Kofi sat in the dim kitchen of the restaurant, scrolling past a photo of himself and Naomi that had gone viral. His heart pounded with guilt. This isn't what I want. They were apart, tempted by others, haunted by headlines, but deep down they both knew. Nothing and no one else could fill the void they had left in each other. The real question was whether they would find their way back, or lose themselves to temptation. Amelia hadn't slept. The mansion was silent except for the faint hum of the air conditioner and the distant wail of a siren outside. Her phone sat on the marble countertop, glowing with notifications she refused to open. Victor's messages, once tempting, now felt hollow and rehearsed. His charm had never been what she wanted. It was a distraction, a shallow substitute for the fire that Kofi had ignited in her months ago. She poured herself a glass of wine, then another, and finally pressed her lips to the bottle in a futile attempt to drown the ache in her chest. But nothing could silence the truth. She had made a mistake letting him go. Across the city, Kofi sat on a crowded subway, his mind replaying every moment with Amelia. The first time she laughed at his jokes, the brush of her fingers in the kitchen, the desperate kiss they had shared. Naomi's laughter from the restaurant haunted him, a cruel reminder of what he didn't want. He pulled out his phone and stared at her name for what felt like hours. His thumb hovered over the screen. He could call, text, risk everything, or he could continue letting their love die slowly in silence. Finally, he exhaled and typed, "I can't do this without you. Meet me. Tonight. Please." His finger hovered over send. Then, with a trembling push, he sent it into the digital void. Amelia's phone buzzed moments later. She saw his name, her chest constricting with equal parts fear and relief. The words on the screen blurred as tears stung her eyes. She didn't hesitate. She grabbed her coat and keys, slipping out into the night before the rational part of her could stop her. They met at a small park, far from the paparazzi, where the only witnesses were the flickering streetlights and a few stray cats. Kofi stood beneath a lamppost, hands shoved deep into his pockets, face tense. When he saw Amelia approach, the tension melted into something softer, something raw. Without a word, she ran into his arms. The world melted away. The months of fear, silence, and temptation vanished in a heartbeat. "I'm sorry," she whispered against his chest, her hands clutching his jacket. "For everything. For letting them tear us apart." Kofi held her tightly, his chin resting on her shoulder. "I'm sorry too," he murmured. "For walking away. For doubting. For letting them scare me." Her tears soaked into his shirt, and he kissed the top of her head. "We can't let them win," he said softly. "Then we fight," she replied. For the first time in weeks, they were no longer two people crushed by the world. They were two people fighting for each other, reckless, defiant, and undeniably in love. The confession didn't solve the scandal. Headlines would still scream. Paparazzi would still lurk. The industry might still turn against Amelia. But for the first time since the first whisper, they felt a glimmer of hope. Because the one thing that mattered, their love, had survived the storm. And sometimes surviving was just the beginning.